The following is rated TV MALSV. It contains strong language, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the show where we talk about everything and anything nerdy. I am the one and only Devious Dave Rose. Thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. This is episode number 2, and I am joined once again by the one and only Doc Holliday.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Thank you for being here. On today's episode, we are discussing the fallout from the recent Fallout 4 trailer, yes, pun intended, as well as more Fallout-related discussions. So now I will defer to Doc Holliday, who has a great deal to state on the matter. Doc?
Alright, so basically the Fallout 4 trailer was dropped maybe a week ago, and it set the internet on fire. Basically, there's mixed reactions to it. Some people are saying it looks ugly, and for that I say it's ugly. It's a early trailer build, so what are you gonna do? Then there's other people that are saying that it's Skyrim with guns, and for them, I say go back to playing Call of Duty while the adults talk. Basically, this trailer looks like they're really emphasizing the lore that they put out in the other games. For you guys that don't know, that haven't played Fallout, basically there's all kinds of lore about what happened before the whole world was nuked, and they basically refer to it as the pre-war era, as you find all kinds of items labeled as pre-war money, pre-war clothes, etc. My problem is the game has been around since 1997, and everybody's just bringing it up now. Where were you guys when these games were first being released? And I'm just sick of the bandwagon. Like, everybody wants to be a fan of the game. Now this is the hot topic to talk about, and it's one of the few big games being released on the next gen consoles.
Now you have a great point on that, Doc Holliday. The fact is that I know where I was when Fallout 1 came out. I was in the store buying it. And the fact is, I remember playing both Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 and just absolutely loving the experience and the uniqueness of the game. Fallout then started to sort of deviate from what they had initially, and they went to Brotherhood of Steel in 2001, and then they released, Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel in 2001, and this was not the turn-based that we were used to. And then we got, 3 years later in 2004, Brotherhood of Steel for the consoles, which was the first time it was on the consoles. And it took 4 years for Fallout 3 to come out. Now, I will be honest. The fact is that I played Fallout 1 and 2 thoroughly and enjoyed them. But I also played a little bit of Fallout 3 only because I didn't have the system and my friend let me try it out. But I didn't get a chance to fully get in depth with that game, for example. But I will be honest. The Fallout experience that I had with the initial 2 is something that makes me endeared to that product. So I can understand where Doc Holliday is coming from, especially when you start to mess with something that's been established, and more so, the bandwagoners who come out and say, well, I've always been into this game. And I remember the same thing with the original Fallout. I remember playing this in early 2000s and stuff. And obviously that was like 3-4 years after the first game came out. Configured my computer to play it because, there were some issues where it wouldn't let you play it properly. But the bottom line is I like to play that game over again. And there was people coming out afterwards with this whole Brotherhood of Steel thing saying, oh, did you see that? Fallout Tactics, it's great. It's like, yes, it's great, and I've known about it for a while, and The fact is, it just seems to be that there's many a people that are more than willing to jump on a bandwagon. And when it comes to a franchise that sort of comes into its popularity through a very grassroots support of it, a cult status, you could say. And Fallout is definitely one of those franchises.
So the main problem I'm having is Fallout 3 did get Game of the Year, but nobody bought it. And it just seems like it's the thing to play now just because it's $5 on Steam and everybody's acting like this game reinvented the wheel, even though it was released 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. Like, and then you got New Vegas, nobody bought it,
Yep.
and nobody's talking about that. And the whole problem with that game is it did improve on Fallout 3 because it did add this hardcore survival mode to where your bullets weigh you down, and you actually got to watch how much equipment you're carrying at one point because you won't be able to move. You'll be a turtle. And in the original Fallout 3, you wouldn't do that. You were just carrying, like, you had so much weight, and then you could get this pack mule perk, and then you could carry like 80 more pounds
Now,
on it.
just sort of interrupt, but that's a good point. That is something I actually mentioned to my friend when he let me play the game and just try it out. And it was something that I noticed and said, well, this doesn't really make much sense. I mean, you would think that they would put a little more effort in that sort of thing.
Exactly, like that was my main problem with New Vegas is they did improve on some of the basic stuff, but they gutted the open world. Okay, in Fallout 3, only people that spent $100 in this game like I have would know is this game has so much content, and it's one of those games you'll probably never finish because there's just so much stuff to see and do. Hell, I'm telling you, I put 80 hours in this game and I still haven't been to the White House on Fallout 3, and that's saying something. And New Vegas, the whole world is empty. Okay, like it's fun exploring stuff, but the problem is the whole game you're getting all these advertisements for the strip. Okay, there's this big buildup for the strip. What's going on at the strip? And when you see this, you can see the strip the whole game. It's off in the distance, and you're like, "Oh my god, I want to get there." And the way I played it was, I went and did everything else first, and like saved the freaking strip for the end of the game to be like, "Okay, this is going to be the giant buildup, the giant payoff." And the whole game, you're getting these ads for this strip club slash casino called Gomorrah, and you get there, and it's empty. All it is maybe a room full of card games and a roulette wheel, and you can use that pre-war money for something finally. And it was very disappointing. And I really hope that somebody, Bethesda, sees this video and doesn't make that mistake again. Fill the world with all kinds of stuff like you did on Fallout 3, even if it's goofy stuff like the antagonizer stuff. And anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, basically in Fallout 3, there's this giant ant hill with these mutant ants, and then there's this weird supervillain dressed up like an ant, calling itself the antagonizer, and they're trying to take over the world, and that was amusing. So please fill the world with all kinds of stuff, and just don't mess this game up. It's your chance to make Fallout 4 mark its stamp on the next generation of consoles. Do not mess it up, Bethesda.
Now, that is a great point, Doc Holliday, that there was always in previous games these great little drops of tidbits, pop culture references, and such, and it really made the game enjoyable. It was still just yet another thing that made it unique, that warranted you, if you wanted to explore these sorts of things in the game. And Bethesda, I think, did a great job from what I did see of Fallout 3. So I do think that there's a lot of potential here. And after seeing the trailer that you pointed out to me, Doc Holliday, I have to say that it does look interesting. However, I do have the same trepidation as you do in regards to what they're going to be putting out, especially considering the fan response thus far. Because if we're starting to see this massive amount of fanboys act in the manner that they do, then we might be able to expect the potential for pandering to said morons. So again, I see where you're coming from. I hope that it does turn out right and the Bethesda does in fact look into keeping the game the way it was, or at least I should say keeping in the nature of what made Fallout so awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And there's like so much potential. Like, there's a lot of Fallout fans that really miss that old school RTS real time strategy stuff that the original games had. And with this whole robot army thing they had going on with New Vegas, they could easily make a mini game out of that. Easily. And that would bring that RTS audience back and make a lot of people happy.
That's very true, and yet we still have not seen a potential MMO for Fallout, which was stated to be in the works for quite some time, both with Interplay as well as with Bethesda.
I really hope that never happens because every time they do that, it always turns out bad. They did the same thing with Dragon Quest. They did the same thing with a Skyrim. That was like one of the biggest flops of the year was the Skyrim MMO. It was supposed to be this big thing, and it just ended up being this hollow, empty shell that basically was a pretty version of Warcraft. So I really hope they never go the MMO route.
All right, well, that's a great point to bring up right now because some franchises actually have benefited from that, while others, as you've clearly mentioned, have not so much. So let's get on to that topic a little further. Why specifically do you think that it would be a bad idea for Bethesda specifically to look into developing an MMO for the Fallout franchise?
It's rarely done right, and it would take way too much money and effort. And I just the way but Bethesda is, I just do not see them doing it justice. Just because what I've seen them do with the Skyrim online, like, don't do it. To me, it's going to be Final Fantasy Online all over again, and it's just going to piss off the fans.
Now, that's a very good point to bring up with Final Fantasy. So, in conclusion, we would like to say from the bottom of our hearts here at Anything Nerdy, exclusively on Reckless TV, that please, Bethesda, consider the greatness that is Fallout in the upcoming Fallout 4 game that you are planning on releasing, and let us hope it is as good as we've seen in the past with that franchise. Now, if you've got any comments about this video, be sure to put them right down there in the comment section. Like, subscribe, tell us what you think. I am Devious Dave Rose, joined here by Doc Holliday for this episode of Anything Nerdy. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. As always, stay devious.